Mali is currently facing a serious breakdown of state control, made much worse by a large coordinated wave of attacks that began on April 25, 2026. Just before 5:20 a.m., multiple explosions went off almost at the same time across different cities, followed by heavy gunfire, marking the start of a well-planned and widespread assault. These strikes didn't just target remote areas, they hit key centers of government power, showing how deeply the state's defenses had been penetrated. What stands out most is the scale and coordination. The attacks appear to have been carefully planned over months, and they suggest an unusual level of cooperation between groups that are normally divided. Secular nationalist fighters and religious extremist organizations working together in ways that were previously considered unlikely. The town of Kati, about 15 kilometers from the capital Bamako, is the main military base and power center of Mali's ruling junta. On the morning of the April 2026 attack, it became a primary target. Fighters from Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, an al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group in the Sahel, launched a direct assault on this heavily guarded area. A suicide car bomb was driven straight into the residence of Defense Minister Sadio Camara. Camara, a central figure in the military government and a key link to Russian security partners, reportedly fought back during the attack, engaging the militants in a gun battle and killing several of them before being critically wounded. He was taken to hospital but died the next day. The attack also killed members of his family, including his second wife and 2 grandchildren. At the same time, other top officials were caught in the violence. Modibo, head of the National Intelligence Agency, and Army Chief Omar Diarra were both seriously injured during the fighting in Kati. By late April, Kone's condition was reported to be rapidly worsening. While the attack was unfolding in Kati, a second major assault hit Modibo Keïta International Airport in Bamako. Residents reported heavy gunfire and explosions around the airport and nearby Base 101, a key military site used by the Malian Air Force and Russian-backed units. The airport, vital for this landlocked country, was forced to shut down completely, with all flights cancelled. Security forces moved through nearby neighborhoods, carrying out intense house-to-house searches to regain control. Russian fighters were also seen helping defend the area, with helicopters flying overhead to support ground operations. Although the military later said the situation was under control, the fact that attackers were able to reach such high-security locations in the capital has caused widespread panic, both among civilians and within the armed forces. To understand what's happening in Mali today, it helps to see it as the result of more than a decade of instability that began in 2012. The crisis started on January 16, 2012, when the National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, MNLA, launched a rebellion in the north, demanding an independent state. That uprising quickly triggered a military coup in March 2012, as soldiers lost confidence in the government's ability to handle the conflict. The resulting chaos allowed an alliance of Tuareg rebels and extremist groups linked to al-Qaeda to take control of key northern cities, Timbuktu, Gao, and Kidal. In 2013, Operation Serval, led by France, pushed these groups back and prevented them from advancing further south toward Bamako. However, it didn't fix the deeper issues, like ethnic tensions and political exclusion, that were driving the conflict in the first place. A new phase began in August 2020, when Colonel Assimi Goïta overthrew President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. Another power move in May 2021 strengthened Goïta's control, marking the start of ongoing military rule. Since then, Mali's leadership has shifted its global alliances. It cut ties with France and the European Union, and in 2023, it pushed out the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali, which had around 13,000 peacekeepers in the country. This series of rebellions, coups, and shifting alliances has shaped the fragile and volatile situation Mali faces today. The 2026 phase of the conflict looks very different from earlier fighting because of two major changes: the rise of drone warfare and the use of economic blockades as a weapon. Mali's military, the Malian Armed Forces (FAMA), has invested heavily in drones to regain control of the north. Reports suggest more than $240 million was spent in 2024 to 2025 on advanced systems like the Bayraktar Arkancher and Skydagger drones. The Arkancher in particular is a high-altitude drone capable of carrying precision-guided weapons, giving Mali a tool it lacked after the withdrawal of France's air support. But rebel groups have adapted quickly. The Azawad Liberation Front, FLA, has used its own drones, including Chinese-made models, to strike back. In one notable case in 2025, they reportedly shot down a military helicopter near Tessalit. By 2026, the FLA had gone even further, using fiber-optic controlled drones that can't be disrupted by electronic jamming. This has turned the conflict into a high-tech contest, where precise strikes can hit key targets, even in heavily defended areas like Bamako or Kati. At the same time, Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin (JNIM) has opened another front, not with guns, but by targeting the economy. Since September 2025, JNIM has enforced a fuel blockade around southern Mali, attacking supply routes coming from neighboring countries like Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Guinea. This has hit Bamako especially hard. With hundreds of fuel tankers destroyed, the city faces constant shortages. People often wait hours just to get small amounts of fuel, while power outages have become common due to a lack of fuel for generators. Hospitals, businesses, and basic services are all struggling to function. Satellite images from late 2025 even show a noticeably darker Bamako at night, highlighting how deeply the blockade has affected everyday life. The loss of Kidal on April 25, 2026 was a huge blow for Mali's military government, both symbolically and strategically. Kidal has long been the center of Tuareg resistance. When it was recaptured in 2023 by the Malian Armed Forces and the Wagner Group, the government presented it as proof that its partnership with Russia was working better than years of French involvement. In 2026, forces from the Azawad Liberation Front, FLA, and Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, JNIM, retook the city very quickly, within 24 hours. Government troops and Russian-backed Africa Corps units were surrounded inside a former United Nations multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali base. Instead of a prolonged battle, reports suggest a deal was made for a safe withdrawal, with Algeria acting as a mediator. Footage later showed Russian vehicles leaving the city, while FLA fighters moved into key locations, including the residence of El Hajj Ag-Gamou, the governor of Kidal. The army later confirmed it had repositioned forces to Anefis, effectively admitting the loss. Mali's conflict is no longer just internal, it's tied to wider global rivalries. After clashes with Russian forces in 2024, there were claims that Ukraine shared intelligence or technology with Tuareg rebels. While Kiev denied this, the rebels' use of advanced drone tactics has raised suspicions. Mali and its allies reacted strongly, cutting ties and accusing Ukraine of backing militants. Algeria, once a key peace broker, now has strained relations with Mali. Disputes escalated after Mali ended the Algiers Accord for Peace and Reconciliation. In 2025, Algeria even shot down a Malian drone near the border. Despite tensions, Algeria still plays a crucial role in mediation, including helping negotiate withdrawals like in Kidal. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have formed the Alliance of Sahel States as a joint defense and political alliance. They've distanced themselves from economic community of West African states, focusing more on military-led governance and reducing Western influence. An important but often missed part of Mali's conflict is the fighting between two major extremist groups, Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, linked to al-Qaeda, and Islamic State Sahel Province, linked to ISIS. Since 2020, these groups have been fighting each other over territory and influence, causing heavy losses on both sides. How they differ. JNIM tries to build local support by limiting civilian killings and sometimes offering basic services. ISGS is far more brutal, often targeting civilians, especially communities it suspects of siding with rivals. Even though ISGS is smaller, it was linked to a significant share of deaths in 2025. Much of their fighting happens around Gao and Timbuktu, where they compete for recruits and control of trade routes. This rivalry sometimes weakens both groups, giving the army chances to strike. But it also increases overall violence, especially for civilians caught in the middle. By April 2026, Mali is facing one of its most serious crises since 2012. The death of Sadio Camara has shaken the military leadership and created uncertainty within the ruling junta. Recent attacks on Kati and the loss of Kidal have badly damaged the government's credibility. There are increasing signs of tension within the military, especially between elite units. Because of this, analysts believe the risk of a coup against President Assimi Goïta is now very high. What comes next? The government may be forced to negotiate with JNIM. This could reduce fighting, but it would likely require major compromises, such as stricter religious laws and sharing power. If no deal is reached, Mali could split further, the north under the Azawad Liberation Front. Central areas controlled by different militant and ethnic groups. The dividing line may increasingly follow the Niger River, raising the possibility that a united Mali may not survive.